All Lane Kiffin has left to do at Ole Miss is win something real, and that's not a bad thing.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we'll talk Chris Beard and Will Wade getting close to announcing a 2-game series that will start off in Greensboro, North Carolina. The games are going to be on neutral floors. Should be pretty good, with Chris Beard and Will Wade kind of being this channel's favorite when the hiring process was going around. In the second segment, we will look at the next position in our top 5 for 2025, the linebackers, and who is set to stand out. But we'll start with Lane Kiffin being named one of the top hires by CBS Sports this century. Expectations are sky high in Oxford, and all that is left for Lane Kiffin to do is win something big. It feels like 2025 might be that opportunity when we look at some of the odds that are out there. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you and able to take your listenership. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel. Listen, CBS Sports came out and named Lane Kiffin as one of the top college football hires this century. That should be a credit to Keith Carter and the whole Ole Miss organization, because what has happened since Lane Kiffin has gotten to Ole Miss, there's been a baseball national championship, Sweet 16s, and women's basketball nearly every year. Chris Beard had them in the Sweet 16 in men's basketball this year. And, of course, like I said, baseball won that national championship. Track's going crazy. Golf's going crazy. There's not many difficult spots for Ole Miss sports right now, and it started with Lane Kiffin, in my opinion. Granted, Mike Bianco's been here the whole century just about, but it started with Lane Kiffin and a recalibrating of the mindset of that. CBS Sports put this out, said that few would call Kiffin's tenure as quiet and consistent, but his Rebels have been exactly that. They've posted 10 wins over the last 3 out of the last 4 years, including a school record 11 victories in 2023. Perhaps the most impressive bit has been Kiffin's flexibility when it comes to building rosters, from leaning on quarterbacks like Jackson Dart to building a fearsome defensive front behind Walter Nolan and running the ball with Quinshon Judkins. Kiffin was all hype early in his career. Now he is all results. And they're right. Winning 10 games at Ole Miss 3 out of the last 4 years, we are entering into glory days territory. If he were to win a 10th game in a season for the 4th time in 5 years, he's getting close to statue land at Ole Miss. And the one thing that is kind of holding him back is winning that key game to get into the college football playoff, to win an SEC championship, to get to the SEC championship game. Gator Bowl wins, Peach Bowl wins, all of that is all well and good, but winning something actually tangible is the next step for Lane Kiffin. That is the difference between him being a good, great, and excellent elite coach. That is what that difference is. Now, it's not a situation to where you can't do it. He doesn't have the opportunity because he's built the Ole Miss roster up in a way that it reloads and it doesn't rebuild. His mastery of the transfer portal has him known as the Portal King around college football because of what he is able to do. Lane Kiffin is on the cutting edge of roster building and everything except the playoff and winning at the highest possible level. Lane Kiffin was an assistant under Nick Saban, and he saw Alabama in the college football semifinals and finals multiple years. He was at USC with Pete Carroll where they won national championships in the BCS for multiple years. He has seen it work. Now he just needs to make it work at this level. And when you look at the record of Ole Miss over the last 50 or so years, this is even more impressive. Lane Kiffin always talks about in recruiting, why go someplace where it's never been done when you can go somewhere and do it for yourself for the first time? Lane Kiffin is kind of charting a similar path with Ole Miss. As this roster and this program gets better and better and better, Lane Kiffin becomes A, more entrenched in the Oxford community, B, more of a steady relevance inside the Southeastern Conference. All he has left to do is win either a playoff game, get to the playoff SEC championship game. That is the next step for Ole Miss Rebels because he is getting the benefit of the doubt. When you look at the sports books who are paid to be right on this situation, they're not in the business of giving free money away. But Ole Miss currently right now has the 10th best odds to win the national championship, according to FanDuel, at plus 3,000. That's roughly 30-1 for what it's worth. They're right behind LSU. Just another list where Ole Miss and LSU are side by side. The people that are charged with making money off of the talent around Ole Miss saying Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. When you look at the computer models based off of the talent that they have and what they've brought in, they rate them extremely high. The only people that don't rate them extremely high going into this season are the people that got burned last year, because last year they choked. There's no way to get around it. It's the biggest choke in Ole Miss football history. But it's not a bad thing to call it that, because you have to be in that position in order to fail. They failed last year. This year has a chance to be a little bit different. When you look at the T. Martin type situation, and everybody loves Austin Simmons, and the wide receiver room is a top 5 wide receiver room in all of college football. The running back room, much more thoughtfully put together than a year ago. Rashad Amos and Dominic Thomas and all those guys, like them, they gave their all last season. They were not as good as Keywan Lacey, Logan Diggs, or those guys, even the freshmen coming in of Shakai Mills Knight. The running back room has a chance to be pretty good. Offensive line, I think they got a little bit big. They had to shrink down in size, and this is going to be a defensive team this start of the season. When you look at the teams that are ahead of Ole Miss, I'm going to list them out on this podcast. You have Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Oregon, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and LSU. Full stop. Those are the only teams that have better odds to make the national championship and win the national championship than the Ole Miss Rebels. The point in all of this is Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss is getting the benefit of the doubt. They're getting the expectations that come with being successful. You talk about turning the corner. There's so many corners that they've turned that now the last corner for them to turn is for them to actually win something. And that is what will take Lane Kiffin from a good coach to a great coach to an elite coach. He needs to win something. And if Lane Kiffin can pull it off this season, they have a chance to be pretty good. The odds are there. Everybody in the computers are there. Even some of the pollsters are there, ranking them in the 15 to 17 to 20 range. This Ole Miss football team, despite all of the turnover that they have, is getting the benefit of the doubt. And you know what? They deserve the benefit of the doubt. Listen, Ole Miss doesn't like to do depth charts, but we don't care. We're breaking down the top 5 linebackers of the 2025 season, and trust us, you will not want to miss it. Summer sports in full swing, whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are over at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a bet in the same game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Ole Miss is currently sitting at a 37.5-point favorite over Georgia State to open the season. So maybe that is your flavor if you're looking for something to bet. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's not a big deal. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So yesterday we did the defensive line and we spent a lot of time. Will Jam Brown take up a double team? I'm very certain that Xavier Harris will be able to do that. If you can consistently make those interior defensive linemen get double teams, that frees up the outside, that frees up the linebackers. And looking at the linebackers, we put the jack position, that's Suntarine Perkins, Prince Will Monmielen at the linebacker position. We view this defense as kind of a 3-3 stack because of the number of hybrids that they have. They do some 4-man front looking stuff. They do some 3-man front looking stuff, but it all has the same personnel. So the jack is a hybrid player and they have a hybrid safety as well. So that is important to know. Whenever we ranked these players, we included the jack as far as most important players for the Ole Miss football team. And that leads us to our number one most important linebacker of 2025, Suntarine Perkins. Suntarine Perkins is the returning leader in sacks and tackles for loss in the Southeastern Conference. He is somebody that made play after play, and his athleticism was all over the field. The question that we are going to have about Suntarine is, without Walter Nolan and Princely Monmielen and those players that were firmly entrenched on the defensive line, will Suntarine Perkins be the subject of double team? Can they run away from Suntarine Perkins? Is his role going to be a little bit diminished? This is an important year. This is a draft year. This is a money year for Suntarine Perkins to show out. Whenever they try to run away from him, the other side has to be really good, whether it's Deshaun Womack or Cam Franklin. If they are good and force them to where they had played the defense kind of straight up, Suntarine Perkins is going to be kind of an animal on the edge of what's happening. Suntarine Perkins is the number one player of this Ole Miss linebacker class. Number two, TJ Dottery. With the double teams on the defensive line, that's going to be of the utmost important. He was the person that was calling the signals last season. He was the most important linebacker that Ole Miss actually had. It wasn't Chris Paul. It wasn't Suntarine Perkins. It wasn't any of them. It was TJ Dottery, because he was tasked with getting everybody where they needed to be. And he had sacks against Arkansas that led to a touchdown. He is somebody side to side that is a very, very good player, and he is an extremely physical player. Now, the question is, who is going to line up beside him, and how will that look? And that's a really good question about what can happen, because you have the athleticism of an Andrew Jones. You have the experience and just goodness of a Jaden Yates. The linebacker positions beside TJ Dottery kind of is sitting pretty at the moment. Raymond Harris also lining up. So we'll see exactly how that looks. But TJ Dottery has a chance to take that step to kind of becoming an NFL type linebacker. Number three is Prince Will Monmielen. I am listing him at jack. He is somebody that is going to line up. He shares some of the attributes of a Princely Monmielen. He does not share the total package of a Princely Monmielen, in my opinion. Prince Will, though, has some things that he does really well. He might be better against the run than Princely was. He is somebody that is going to provide a different look at that jack position. And Prince Will establishing basically a good pass rush and looking like his brother, Princely Monmielen. Prince Will Monmielen has a chance to be a really good, really effective player for this Ole Miss defense if he's lining up with Suntarine Perkins. Now, listen, we talked about NASCAR packages. of how you can rush the passer on 3rd and 15 and get after him, to where on one side is a Prince Will Mamiel and the other side is Suntarine Perkins. Cam Franklin moves down as a 3 technique or a nose guard, and then you have Jam Brown and William Eccles to be a kind of a NASCAR package. You can rush like an Andrew Jones from the linebacker position, and that is going to cause a lot of problems with what is going on. The run game and run stopper almost feels like a little bit of a hedge of your bet against Suntarine Perkins playing Jack full-time this season. So it'll be important to see what happens when they run the ball directly at Suntarine Perkins. And if he does that and there's success running the ball that direction, you have Prince Will and Mommy Ellen who can kind of fill in at a high level. Number 4 is Jaden Yates, the 100-yard landlord from Marshall that transferred in. This is a massively experienced player and somebody that is honestly just good. If you want solid, if you want steady, if you want all of that coming from the G5 level to the SEC level, because that jump does take a little bit of it. Whenever you look at the defensive line, you might have a Jaden Yates that plays a little bit more than somebody else because double teams aren't so predictable on the defensive line. Jaden Yates has a chance to be a really good player, and he's just super steady. And you can put him next to a TJ Dottery and a Suntarine Perkins, and the linebacker situation is going to be honestly good to go. Number 5, we look at Andrew Jones, the linebacker transfer out of Grambling. He transferred to Ole Miss from Grambling, originally committed to South Carolina, ended up coming to Ole Miss, and he is an athlete. He can really run. He is somebody that, if you can get the double teams, can take your defense from great to elite. It's that type of player and what he can do. He is a Chris Paul clone of somebody that can go sideline to sideline. But it's going to be imperative to where he kind of has a clean look in front of him and him to pick up the defense as well. That's the other thing with Jaden Yates. You don't have to worry about Jaden Yates picking up the defense. He's going to be able to do that. Andrew Jones, coming up from a 1AA school, it might be a little bit more complex. It might take a little bit of time. We'll see what happens in the spring. He didn't flash an over amount of times. We'll see what happens in fall camp as well. But those are the top 5 most important, not the best, the most important linebackers that Ole Miss has this season. It's really important to know the difference between that. In our final segment, Ole Miss is on the verge of finalizing a non-conference neutral site showdown with Will Wade's NC State. The first meeting is set for December 21st in Greensboro, North Carolina, with a return game in 26, a little bit closer to Oxford, likely South Haven. We'll tell you what that means for the Rebels next. We're going to change gears a little bit and go over to basketball because news broke yesterday from John Rothstein that Ole Miss and North Carolina, Chris Beard and Will Wade, are finalizing a neutral site, home and home, I guess I could call it that. There's going to be a game played at a neutral site in North Carolina. There's going to be a game played at a neutral site in Oxford. And it's probably going to be right around the Christmas season each and every year. Ole Miss has been known to do this and playing games at South Haven on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. They don't play at the Mississippi Coliseum in Jackson because that place is kind of falling down at this point. Ever since they changed off the circus tent painting, if you look in the history books of the Mississippi Coliseum, the moment they changed off of the circus tent, they kind of went downhill as well. But Ole Miss is playing Southern Mississippi seemingly annually at the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum. I'm assuming this game will be in South Haven. Ole Miss played Colorado State in South Haven a year ago. So that's the likely destination of that after the game in Greensboro when you approach the Christmas season. Listen, Chris Beard has always talked about the anybody, anywhere mindset of his team. And he likes to schedule non-conference games that are difficult. And everybody's going to say, well, they haven't necessarily over the last couple of years. That's because honestly, Ole Miss hasn't had the cachet to get them each and every year. This year, Ole Miss is going to play a game at Madison Square Garden against St. John's. It's basically a true road game, the way that is set up. St. John's uses that as a second home as opposed to their smallish gym. St. John's is kind of the college of New York. So we'll see exactly how that looks. The ACC-SEC Challenge Ole Miss plays Miami. I think Miami hired a former Duke assistant. They've been active in the transfer portal. They might not have a very good record, but there is a good bit of money in South Beach, and Miami basketball can be pretty good from time to time. Ask Jim Warnega about that. So this series is kind of funny to me because this channel was very proactive about Chris Beard. I'm not going to take credit for hiring Chris Beard because I don't have hiring and firing ability. But I had nearly everybody I could get on the show trying to determine if he was hireable, and each and every one of them said he was. He turned out to be, and the rest is history. The other coach that was on the list was Will Wade. At that point, he had been let go at LSU. He was kind of a scapegoat, if we're going to be honest, in order for them to protect football. But Will Wade got ran out, went to McNeese State for a couple of years, and they were a pretty good tournament team. When you look at these two coaches, to me at least, they will always be linked because of that coaching search and because of what we did for that coaching search. So this will be a pretty cool thing. Now, Will Wade and North Carolina State's about to be a problem in the ACC. I hope everybody realizes that's exactly what's about to happen. The worst thing that could have happened to Hubert Davis, the coach of North Carolina, was Will Wade going to NC State. Period. And the fact that Will Wade and Chris Beard, they want to tangle a little bit, hey, I'm all for that because another good team means other good non-conference games. And the SEC, if they have a similar type year that they had a year ago, you will have a situation where the non-conference game don't necessarily matter. But if the SEC and Ole Miss wins the games in the non-conference, that's how you build up that juggernaut. Last year in non-con, basically all non-con teams got just run. Nobody was beating SEC teams last year. And that built up a juggernaut to where after non-conference season, when they were just playing each other, they had all of the cachet. And Florida winning a national championship kind of shows that. In a downtime because of NIL, because of the SEC, Florida wins a national championship this year when honestly everybody thought Auburn would. And it's going to be interesting, by the way, to think about Auburn because Bruce Pearl feels like he's gearing up for a Senate run. He's about to get into politics. And if that happens, I don't know where it goes, honestly. But Chris Beard and Will Wade will play a basketball game next Christmas and the Christmas after that. Likely, I think, in South Haven. It will be neutral site, but closer to Oxford. I do not think they can get the FedEx Forum for anybody that's asking about that, but they do and have played games at the Landers Center over at South Haven. So we'll pay attention to that. I know there's a Coliseum in Tupelo. I don't know if there's enough people in Tupelo that makes that. Whenever you have a game in South Haven, you're right there at Memphis for people to drive down to see you play. I don't know. It should be pretty interesting. So thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, and that is why we are the front door to Ole Miss. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone.